This is a Film Stories original podcast. We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf here on the We Made This podcast network. My name's Mark Adams and I'm your host today for this episode looking at Series 7, Episode 5, Blue. With me at this time is my regular co-host, Kurt North. Hello, Kurt.
Welcome.
And we're also joined by the man who has nagged us that he has to do Blue from the moment we set up this podcast. It's Matt Latham.
Oh, yes, this was like one of the dibs.
This was the first one you claimed, I think.
Yeah, this is the one of dibs that I almost, I haven't, but almost didn't watch the episode, didn't take any notes whatsoever, and thought, I'm just going to sit back and listen to this. I'm not hosting. I'm just going to sit and listen. It's going to be great.
But there are certain episodes that, for me, it was Gunman of the Apocalypse, but for you, Matt, it was clearly Blue. Do you want to say why it's your favourite?
I still think this is probably my second favourite. I'll still maintain that.
Oh,
Thanks for the Memory in Series 2 is probably my all-time favourite episode. But this has perhaps my favourite sequence of the entire show in it. So yeah, my favourite thing in Red Dwarf is in this episode. I once got told off for reciting it in school once. As growing up and rewatching it as well, and rewatching it with the kind of podcaster eyes on it as well. There's a lot of kind of interesting things and like milestones in this. I mean, technically, this is the last conclusive appearance of original Rimmer. Give or take the debate on future series. There's some interesting character work. There's some interesting stuff to do with the relationship between Lister and Rimmer, and it's also just fucking funny.
Is it the last thing of the original Rimmer, though? Is it?
There's another flashback later on in the series, isn't there, of the original Rimmer?
No, but it's not the original Rimmer, is it? I'm alive!
Boom. Yeah.
It's not the original Rimmer. I'm being pedantic, but...
Isn't it fascinating that there's all these Rimmers, but there's actually still only one... Well, no, actually, there's lots of Cats and Listers as well, isn't there, from alternative realities and stuff?
I think in terms of debates and the continuity of things, this is like the last conclusive, definite original Rimmer. Say aside from the exploding from like time slides, but
I'm just being facetious. But, it is like the last of the original BBC type Rimmer.
Well, I think there's a whole discussion to come up when we get to, I think, even Back to Earth actually, and especially Trojan, about like what the hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. There's in an alternative version of Red Dwarf, this could have technically been Chris Barry's last episode, and and we had the send off a few episodes ago when we come Ace Rimmer, which was like a nice concluding arc for Rimmer. The show seems to kind of will get into a habit of repeating and not fully understand what to do with the character from this point going forward. But again, that's future Matt to talk about properly.
Both me and Matt will just take off in our little time machine now and head into Red Dwarf 11 and Promised Land and stuff like that, and we'll talk about that.
But what I also quite like about this is there's a nice like epilogue to the character as well. So you've got the character. The show's taking the moment to kind of not forget he exists and to kind of decompress the fact. And I think there's, and particularly I think as post season series 6, they've tried their hardest to keep continuity or trying to keep as tight as they can, despite a lot of massive continuity errors. By just realising, hang on, Rimmer was chosen by Holly for a reason, and I think this is kind of decompressing what that reason that Holly picked Rimmer to keep him sane was, and I quite like that the episode kind of delves into that. And also, it's fucking funny.
It is funny. So, this episode was broadcast on the 14th of February, 1997.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
This week I'm 17.
Ah, right, okay. I mean, I was 18 and I was headed to university, I think, like I said. And
It is horrible. It's like, it's probably not as bad as people who were born on like New Year's Eve or on Christmas, but having a birthday the week before Valentine's Day is not a good thing.
No, I suppose
I
not.
think I was 11. I hadn't started I was secondary school, September. Yeah, I was 11.
It starts with the theme tune. There's no cold open this time, which we have seen a lot of cold opens in this series, but this goes straight into the theme tune, dun 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 dun, etc. And it starts with Lister spit shining his boots, and Crichton offers him a curry for breakfast. Lister refuses it because he doesn't want bad breath. Crichton suggests it's because of Kachansky and bitches about her salad cream habits and the extra laundry and ironing. And we need to get this out of the way immediately. Salad cream in the fridge or on the shelf? Kurt?
Neither.
Neither? I'm afraid I'm the same. What about you, Matt?
If there's salad cream in my house, there's something weird.
Okay, so maybe we'll talk
that
about
fell in his arse, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some other things. Ketchup. Kurt?
In the fridge.
In the fridge.
Wrong. In the cupboard. Right, okay. Jam. Kurt?
Jam is in our fridge.
Matt?
Once it's open, in the fridge.
In the cupboard? Oh, red.
In the cupboard.
Yeah, in the cupboard. No, in the bread bin.
Well, yeah, okay. Bread bin counts as a cupboard. For me, that was a trick question. In the freezer. And crisps.
Oh, here we go. And I'm going to leave this one because I haven't tried it yet.
No, in the cupboard, but it's not my place to tell the story, but if you ever see Mr. Tony Black, ask him where he keeps his crisps.
They definitely go in the fridge. I definitely keep crisps in the fridge. If Tony keeps them in the fridge, he's right.
Oh, no, talking about the freezer. Talking about the freezer.
He puts crisps in the freezer. Oh, I might give that a go.
Okay, so shall I just message Tony now, see if he can come on?
I completely disagree with both of you about what should be in the fridge and what should be in the cupboard. Anyway, maybe should we have some votes on social media where we should put things? Yeah, I think so.
It depends on what you're putting as the question.
Well, I can tell you where you can put that poll, Mark. Sorry.
Oh.
So no, actually, I do agree. It's a good poll, but I just thought, okay, the opportunity's there.
Lister corrects him when he says container instead of cup for a bra, and queries why he didn't know this, considering he served women on the Nova 5. Grant says he's cleared his cache, which he did in Tika to Ride, and didn't think he needed female terminology. Lister says they found another dimensional tear and she'll be gone soon anyway. Lister suggests that he mentions his issues to Kachansky when, rather than bitch to him about it, but when she enters, Crichton is polite. There's also another Hermann Goering gag. What is their obsession with Hermann Goering?
There's a couple of Nazi references in this one.
They do seem to like to make Nazi gags, don't they?
Yeah, but you've probably spoken about this in previous episodes already. But can I just point out that despite some of Series 7's flaws as a whole, one of the better things is Petty Crichton.
This has definitely been a topic so far.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting debate, has it, Matt? Even I can't even speak. I fall on the side of It's incredible.
I find it hilarious. And
Yeah, it's a nice, refreshing. It's a nice, refreshing kind of new thing for them to try out. And Robert Llewellyn is enjoying it probably a bit too much.
yeah.
Hold me back. Hold me back.
Kachansky has had a weird dream and takes the salad cream out of the fridge. Oh, hold me back, like you say.
Let's just hold back on that. Do you know what I love about that scene? Of course, hold me back. But it's the way that Kachansky goes, oh, I absolutely adore. There's a few moments with Kachansky for this I find amazing. And it's the way she opens that fridge and just goes, oh, and then takes it out.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think we'd forgotten to some extent how good Chloe Anna is actually as Kachansky. She's almost seen as like, I remember when she arrived in the show, I was like, where's Claire Grogan? This isn't Kachansky. And I think that tainted my opinion of her originally when I was a teenager. Whereas rewatching it, she's great as Kachansky, like really great.
I think what's helped as well. This is the first time I watched these episodes in perhaps about a year and a bit. Because I think I watched them when I accidentally binged the series. I think it was like a couple of series ago. I just carried on watching past the episodes I was supposed to go on for.
Yeah, it happens to us all. It happens to us all.
The day before, I watched 2 episodes of Crime Traveller for other podcasting reasons. I watched those 2 episodes of Crime Traveller before this, and the difference between kind of Kachansky and Holly through in the two of them is quite remarkable. They do feel like completely different people.
Well, I would say, I mean, I was going to mention this in the next weeks, but I don't have to. I can do it now. Like the way she portrays the Jane Austen stuff as well is like it comes across really, like she just fits in that world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she just brilliantly fits in that world, and yeah, she's a great actress.
I think it's a massive shame that she kind of basically faded into obscurity after Red Dwarf and Crime Traveller. She's essentially retired now. I don't think she acts at all, does she?
I don't think no. I think she's appeared on Doctors a couple of times, and I think she was in Harvey City and Casualty. But yeah, I think she's like really kind of really good and kind of brings a new air of conflict.
Yeah,
to like the characters and stuff, and like it's a nice. It's appreciate that they go a completely different direction to swap the character out. Whereas, like for example, if you compare Coupling, where Stephen Moffat accidentally says, "Oh, I didn't mean to replace Richard Coyle with another guy called Richard, who was also kind of neurotic and nerdy." But and then practically he's just like the same character, more or less. They kind of appreciate that they made Kachansky very, very different to Rimmer to bring a different kind of energy, and Chloe Annette just carries that.
There's a very brief shit CGI moon, and Kat and Kachansky look concerned in the cockpit. Crichton continues to bitch to Lister about Kachansky, and then she comes in to interrupt them, telling them that there's a hazard approaching and that the lights are flashing. That CGI moon really irritated me.
I think most of the CGI really irritates most people.
True.
There is some model work, isn't there? Because the terraform stuff, is that in this episode or the next one?
It's still better than Babylon 5 CGI, though.
Well, that's the whole reason why I have never watched Babylon 5. That is the sole reason. And I've heard it's absolutely amazing television.
It is.
But I can't get past the CGI.
And you're
I
right.
can't get past it.
It's a shame because it really is great. Maybe a remastered version, but that would be too expensive, wouldn't it? There's a phasing comet, and Kachansky wants to plot an avoidance course. Lister suggests that they can make it. They argue, but Kat has read the baked potato timer, meaning that they have to go through it anyway. I really like the baked potato timer gag. I think it's done really, really well.
The setup a few minutes earlier was pretty good as well, so I quite like. Again, I can't remember what the exact comment is, but I think Crichton makes a comment about. No, it's Kachansky that makes a comment about the baked potato timer or something, and then right, and then Kat, who's not in the original, is not in that scene when that's set up, makes it, and it's just like a nice kind of lived-in kind of world where you fit like if the ensemble's getting like feeling still kind of tight, even though the dynamics changed a bit.
Yeah, it's Kachansky, isn't it? Because she says like something along the lines of "We're under attack. The baked potatoes," or it's either that or the baked potatoes are burning.
Yeah.
And it's the writing in that is like the fact that Kat's got it in his head, he just can't get rid of the baked potato. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the baked potato time.
The buffering is heavy and causes, amongst other things, the nutty fruit bars to spill onto the floor and Kat's hair to frizz. However, Lister does manage to get control for a few seconds. Then they have to turn around to escape. The damage has meant that Kachansky has missed the link and she leaves the cockpit upset. The others discuss what went wrong and they need to jettison some supplies. Lister goes to look and asks Rimmer if he's coming, mistakenly calling the cat Rimmer.
So what I like about these moments in here is just the way that Crichton is trying to help Lister with the ice. And it's like, it's really good writing because he also says, like he's mouthing the word ice, and then Lister's going, I see, it's a gas, you know. It's just you're waiting for him to say, I see, ice. That's what you're waiting for. I think that's genius writing. That is just the way I see.
It is a very good gag.
And we've got another spin-off show as well, Mark, in the Vidal Beast of Sharma 2.
We've got the what now, huh?
The Vidal Beast of Sharma 2. It says, we'll make it, we're a crew, we've been through a few things. Remember when we met up with the Vidal Beast of Sharma 2?
Oh, okay.
That was a Smegbuster's answer that no one got.
Was it?
And I forgot it then as well, so, you know.
I think Hob's still in the corner crying.
Hob can sod off. What are we doing for our Christmas special this year? We haven't decided. If you've got any ideas what we should do for our Christmas special, let us know. We've got no fucking clue.
I'll be free in December.
The way things are going, this will be airing in January, but we'll see.
Oh, good point. Well made.
Yeah.
Stop making time references, Mark.
It's still valid. It's just 11 months away.
True. Crichton approaches Kachansky with some ship rules. Salad cream, pants and socks, toilet seats, etc. Kachansky is unhappy with it all and calls him neurotic. You mean I'm not alone? Oh, I see. One of the best gags in all of Red Dwarf ever. All of it. I say that all the time. Someone says something to me that's like rude. I'm like, you mean I'm not alone? Oh, I see. I love it. Quotable dwarf. And it when you do that, it disarms people as well. Because obviously I'm doing it deliberately, as well, Crichton wasn't, but I do.
Yeah, well, they say, Darren Brown says in his book, like he talks about a story when he was at university and he was like running across like a couple of people who were drunk. I think it was a couple. And he talks about how the boyfriend got really kind of angry and he was really, really drunk. And he turned around and said something like, do you think that wall was 4 foot? Like that, just completely randomly, like said a different phrase completely. I'm not sure if that's 4 foot or not, or something along those lines. Completely disarmed him because it's taken the subject to like such a random thought that it completely disarmed him. And I've done it before where you've kind of like, there's been a moment when somebody in the city was like shouting over to me and saying some obscene thing about my mother, and I just went, yeah, you're right, aye. She's like, right, whore. You know what I mean? And he was like, what? And it just disarmed him because they don't expect you to like agree. They expect you to get all up in the face and stuff. And it's amazing how it works.
Lister mourns Rimmer, and things like his shoe trees remind her of him. Kat is less bothered and suggests throwing out the golf clubs. But those golf clubs remind Lister of when he played golf with Rimmer on a planetoid. It heads to a flashback. Crichton created it for them, and Rimmer plays a really good shot, while Lister's goes into orbit. Rimmer's ball goes round the planetoid and lands at Lister's feet, and he pockets it. Rimmer spends ages looking for the ball to win a bet. The spacesuit is much better than in Series 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this scene?
I don't know if it really added much to the actual story, because the story admittedly is quite light.
it's a theme, isn't it? Right, more than anything else. I think it works. And again, I go back to what I was saying about Doug Naylor in previous episodes, where he wants this to be more of a dramatic comedy than anything else. He doesn't. He wants it to move away from the sitcom and become more of that. That kind of have that the dramatic element to it. And I think this is another case in point where he's trying to like add theme and add like resonance and stuff like that into the episode.
They've done a lot of flashbacks with Rimmer as well. I remember at the time, I thought we'd said goodbye to Rimmer completely when he went off to become Ace. And these flashbacks were always a pleasant surprise. And I think that was probably deliberate, that they wanted to give the impression you weren't going to see Rimmer again. And then you kept getting these nice little flashbacks, which I liked. I liked that. It was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it definitely works in that vein as well. The fact that it's something we've not seen before, and it's gives you that world building a little bit as well. And as you say, because you're expecting to miss him, that you're seeing him unexpectedly here. So I think it works in that way as well, because it makes you like almost nostalgic, even though he's only just gone.
I think it's an example of perhaps why, in theory, Rimmer might have been the right choice for Holly to bring back as a hologram, because it's like basically winding Rimmer up. He's somehow keeping Lister level, insane, and So this first out of 2 flashbacks that we see is at least an example of that, of Lister deliberately winding up Rimmer to keep, like, just for the fun of it. And I think that, I think it's a case that Lister perhaps never appreciated or fully realised. I don't think he does, and I don't think we've ever had. I don't think it happens here where Lister's never had that full realisation that why Holly did it. I think he's been told. I think it's come up a few times. I think he tells Kachansky this later on, but I don't think that Lister fully appreciated the actual reason that Rimmer was chosen. And I think we're getting an example of this with that. And yeah, you can just see the sheer joy of his face as he's throwing Rimmer's golf ball up and down, watching him from inside Starbug. Goes, yeah, we're free for a couple of hours.
And I think the very first scene in Red Dwarf of all time is Lister getting some solace for his shit job. Before all the stuff happened, the 6 million years, etc. He gets some solace in his shit job from winding up Rimmer. And this flashback goes back 6 series and tells a gag that they could have told in series 1, which is wonderful. I think the flashbacks are done so well and always get the spirit of the series that they're gently referencing. Clint arrives and asks how it's all going. Lister has failed to chuck out anything because it all reminds him of Rimmer. And he then tells them about the locker room game, which heads to another flashback. Rimmer and Lister are breaking into lockers, and according to Rimmer, Lister always wins. Lister's choice has a gold necklace, cash, and a nudie wrestling DVD. Rimmer, he gets blasted in the face by fire and an abusive note. And I love it.
Getting mileage out of the quote-unquote Red Dwarf set of basically corridors in black they used a few episodes previously.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, I found that last time we saw this corridor, it was a lot grimier, and it feels like it's more well lit this time compared to the last time we saw it a few episodes back.
Which is odd, because it's set after the 6 million years, isn't it, this scene? So surely they would have been grimier in this scene than they would have been in the original scene with Kachansky.
Maybe they just lit it differently, but it begged, I mean, obviously, the thing with this scene and with the 14-week schedule that they've got and the fact that how they had Chris Barry, it kind of plays towards, and I don't know this, but kind of plays towards an idea that has he filmed a lot of this stuff out of order so that he has like a short window to record X, Y, and Z, and then he's just off after them.
I definitely thought that. And the fact that there's 2 scenes in the same set as well kind of probably reinforces that argument.
Yeah.
Before the flashbacks, It's a very rare instance of the cat referring to Rimmer as Rimmer.
It does always call him Goalpost Head, doesn't he?
Yeah, or just like names. And I'm sure we've had this conversation before, or if not with me, then I'm sure it's been brought up. Because I'm pretty sure Mark brought it up several series ago about the cat never referred
We've
to.
definitely had the conversation before,
And I
yeah.
can't remember if he has done or not. He must have, because because that's when the conversation must have been brought up, like something like series 2 or 3 or something where he thought.
Yeah, wasn't it? I think it wasn't it something to do? Was it around about? Was it in Thanks for the Memory or somewhere around there maybe? Because it's to do because Rimmer was well down. It kind of like he used it because it was a term of phrase that was endearing rather than actually.
I think it might have been Thanks for the Memory, because I think it's just before the scene on the observation deck. I think, because Cat talks to Lister about Rimmer or something. Yeah. And I think and I remember, and that's that conversation always stuck in my head when I try and remember it. I can't think of any other times where he refers to him, and it just feels so weird to hear Danny John Jules go blah blah Rimmer, and I'm like, why what?
Yeah, I think it's probably deliberate because he's become a little bit more empathic over the years than the original. Ow, feeling good. How am I looking? You know, he has developed and become closer to the rest of the crew. So maybe it's kind of like a nod to that as well.
No, also kind of nice little remembrance that the cat's the worst person to try and open up to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lister is in the cockpit and Ace ports in. It's our Rimmer, and he's actually bored and wants to come back. Rimmer asks after Kachansky, and Lister says she's all right. He then asks if she's better than him. Lister says she's not as attractive as him, and they kiss. It's a dream, and Lister wakes up.
Listy.
Oh,
Listy.
Oh, Rimsy.
Oh, Rimmy.
And what I love about this is it's a full-on actual snog. It's not like they're about to kiss and it cuts. They actually have a full-on snog. And that is proper acting from two heterosexual actors. Good for them. Well done. Because they both really commit to it.
I do wonder if there's any behind the scenes stuff, or whether that was the first take, and whether, because I'm assuming that's still filmed. Are they filming in front of a studio audience?
No, not in the entire season. The entire season's recorded.
See, now that would have been brilliant scene to do in front of a studio audience. I think, if they get the first take right, and then just the kind of shock value of it all, and the audience reaction probably would have been a lot, perhaps better, like bigger than it was. So it just feels like canned laughter. Whereas I think if it was on the set in front of an audience, it would probably be a bigger thing, and you'd have that kind of moment where the kind of action has to stop, and the audience has to kick in. So
there's a moment, I can't remember if it's this episode or next episode, and there's a thing from Crichton. It might be the end of this one, and it stops, and it feels like that they're waiting for the laugh, like they kind of know it's going to be funny, and they're waiting for it. I know we've talked about this in the previous episodes about, like the double take, watching the double take in the first episode of this series, when Crichton looks at the book depository bookstore, and he goes like that. It's hilarious, but if you watch it without the laughter track, it isn't. It's kind of like it's a bit jarring. So it was recorded. I think it was. I can't remember the exact dates, but it was recorded something like, I don't know, February to April, and then it was put in front of an audience, and the video was played back in the October or something, and then they actually reacted that way. So there is some overspill into the next scene when he's in the bed, but obviously they do have the ability to manipulate that.
Yeah, because it's a very quick cut as well, so they don't linger on it too long. And again, so they kiss, and then seconds after, it's the falling out of bed. Which
I think it's done really well, actually, because obviously you would wake up with something like that, and you compare that to perhaps the kiss with Pete Trance's sister, where it spins round to the siren, and it's all overdone to the point where that becomes the gag, that it's lasting so long. I think that would have been gratuitous with a gay kiss. So I think they actually do it really well there. There's the shock value and there's the whole shit. You don't even get the chance to laugh before Lister wakes up. And I think that's actually really well done. I think it's a very different situation to the siren, as an example.
Do you think the punchline was perhaps meant to be Lister, like Craig Charles's reaction, so that so when he starts freaking out and starts scraping his tongue, that's the physical punchline. So do you think that?
Yeah,
I think it's quite yeah. Okay, yeah. It's part of me wondering whether the whole editing and the pacing of it would be different if it's in front of a live audience. But I think
it probably would be. You'd get the woo response from the audience that you don't get.
This is the obligatory me and Matt's favourite joke of Red Dwarf 10 moment.
Which is in front of a universe.
What? Huh?
Man!
Man. Which is in front of a live studio audience, and is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Man, I can't wait. I can't wait for Trojan.
I've already said to Mark, we need to be in that room when we watch Trojan. We need to get together and watch
Trojan.
That episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to watch Red Dwarf 10 now.
Nope.
Oh.
We've made Matt wait this long for Blue.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Oh, man. God, how long have we got left for the Trojan?
A while. Crichton is bitching about Kachansky to Kat in the cockpit very briefly before it cuts to Lister in sickbay after his dream. Crichton gives him hypnotherapy, but he's mixed the disc with German language and recites a speech from Hitler. And why are they making so many Nazi jokes?
The only thing I think I don't know why I always think this. Well, I know why I always think this because I'm a bloody Star Trek fan. That in my head, I always displace it being a Hitler German thing to being a Klingon opera. Just internally, I think, oh, Klingon opera. That's the immediate thing I think about. So yeah, but and it's one of those things. Kapla.
Kachansky enters looking for something to cheer herself up. She's missing her Lister. Our Lister admits he's missing Rimmer, despite the fact that everything he did annoyed him. Kachansky suggests that Rimmer sacrificed his own happiness to keep Lister sane. Lister decides to throw everything out and make a new start. And I think it's really interesting that Kachansky is the one that's being perceptive here because she's got an outside looking in opinion, whereas Crichton didn't spot that. That tends to be why sometimes I will go for advice to someone who's completely outside of a situation, because you getting the new perspective is probably more valuable than having everything you think being reinforced, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what highlights as well, with the character of Kachansky, I think she's an officer, isn't she? So in this version, still like an officer, and she's practically something that the crew hasn't really delved properly before, which is competence. Yeah. So I think they never kind of shy away of showing, hang on, this is someone who's actually good and competent in a role. He's actually kind of empathic, slightly upper class, kind of looks down and knows on the others most of the time, but still has the ability to kind of see, kind of like read something and can see that thing, as Mark said, from an external point of view, but kind of reads into it and knows what to say and stuff. Am I right in thinking she's the navigation officer?
Yes.
Yeah. So like technically perception is one of a key thing in terms of one of those roles. So I think I'm assuming a very perceptive character that Kachansky is probably able to kind of apply that to how she deals like with kind of one-to-one situations, and is able to see Lister's like kind of emotional mood in a way that no one else is able to, because Crichton has no concept of other selves. Kat's concept of self is, well, I don't need to finish that sentence.
No.
and Rimmer is just like Rimmer is like just an inverse of the cat when it comes to the perception of people. Both quite vain, but in different ways. So it's quite refreshing that Lister, who is quite an empathic person who is probably able to do what Kachansky's doing to the other three members of the crew, but he can never do it to himself. So it's a nice switch that the role that Lister usually is in the series with the other three, there's someone who can do that to him for now. And I quite like how that kind of plays out in this scene, because it's something that he's never really had before, because Lister's always usually been on the one with a bigger understanding of humanity and what it is to human and emotion than everyone else.
I think it's a really interesting repetitive theme within Red Dwarf, that the outsider who wouldn't normally be friends with this group of people, it's the story of how they integrate. We've talked about how the cat went from basically being a personified cat to developing some empathy over the previous series. We've talked about how Rimmer and Lister's unlikely friendship develops because of the situation they're in. So this is almost like a reset of that by bringing in a new character. And I really like that they've continued this as an ongoing theme across Red Dwarf from the beginning, really. And to some extent with Crichton as well, because he was added, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the subjective versus objective nature in which and the construct that you're in. You know, if I use those terms, because she is very objective in this. She's got no real agency in what they've been through. She's only just joined the ship, so she can be quite objective, as you say, from an officer's perspective. That she's able to look at it and don't think of it in a subjective way. She doesn't really have her own agenda as such, because her only agenda is to get to her Dave, which she keeps going on about. So there's no real sense of her being subjective on her viewpoint. It's just an objective viewpoint from an empathy point of view.
Apologise if you've covered this already, but I'm assuming that in previous episodes that I've not been able to hear yet, that I'm assuming that the only timeline divergence between Kachansky's dimension and our dimension is who got caught and got sentenced for Frankenstein. So
that's right.
So I'm wondering if the Lister from her dimension was pretty much the slob that she knew. But then I think it's when he's been the hologram. So she probably kind of knows the right thing to say anyway. So in that case, she's probably the best person for him to speak to in the whole universe at that point in time.
Yeah, I guess her Dave is a matured version of our Dave to some extent.
Yeah, because he was a soft light hologram, wasn't he? So the fact, and they say that in the episode where it's like he's learned to become this empathic person, and the way that he is in the other dimension because he was soft light and couldn't do things for himself, and his nurture grew from that. So yeah, that's an interesting perspective, definitely.
Crichton re-enters and is rude to Kachansky, kicking her out of sickbay. Crichton is about to do his hypnotherapy, and Lister says, "Doesn't matter, Kachansky's already helped." And Crichton gets very, very upset.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? He's just so good in this series. Series 7 for me isn't the best series at all, but it's the epitome of Crichton. And I'm going to keep saying that until we finish this series. Really,
it's just for him being able to do things like Crichton, to be able to do something different than he's not been able to do as Crichton before, and it's just like that kind of like very petty jealousy, which is.
So for me, I have been in a relationship where it was something similar to this. My ex got very, very jealous of my best friend, rather than in this, it's obviously the best friend getting jealous of the love interest. And it's genuinely really hard to deal with. And Lister deals with it a lot better than I did when I was in that situation. When someone's being irrational about and jealous about something that just doesn't exist, it's like, how do you deal with that? Lister's a lot more patient than I was.
What I quite appreciate, and I think goes towards the kind of character that Lister is that he's not overly kind of pursuing Kachansky in a kind of what could have been a kind of pervy, old-fashioned sitcom way.
Apart from maybe one exception.
There was an exception earlier on in the series, but we talked about it. Let's move on.
Right, okay.
But yes, your general point is right, that he does become a little bit more chivalrous after that one unpleasant scene. Games night. And Kachansky gets first pick as she's new, and she chooses The Magic Flute, a game about operas. She loves this game, but Lister and Kat don't understand, as they used to armpit name that tune and match the body part to the crew member. So I would quite like for our Christmas special to have a game of armpit name that tune. Would that be too childish? It is going to be Christmas.
We'll brainstorm it.
Yeah.
We need
We
to do
can
is
do it
make a
in
poll on
teams.
Twitter. We need to do is make a poll on Twitter. Should we do armpit that tune?
The contrary votes on Twitter meant we did the fucking AA ads last year. We all expected to do the porn.
To be fair, I did use 3 Twitter accounts to vote for the ads myself. So
Corruption! Shocking.
it was.
Get
This
out.
was the scene. I think this was like the scene when she starts getting quite excited about talking about the magic flute. This was the scene that I realised, like, just how different Chloe Nett is as Kachansky is compared to the character of Holly from Crime Traveller, and just like how kind of like almost the physical presence of the character is different. I recommend watching Crime Traveller very, very close to Red Dwarf, because you can definitely see just how good Chloe Nett is doing, particularly just about how she gets really, really excited talking about getting operas.
I think what's really nice about this scene is the writing and the acting complement each other to make a hard sell character likable. She's posh in a working class sitcom. Let's be blunt. It is a working class sitcom. It is, but you know, we may or may not be working class. I'm definitely from a working class background, and I feel like I don't earn enough to be middle class. But I have a degree, so, you know, maybe I'm not working class. But essentially, it's not aimed at people like Kachansky. It's aimed at people like us. And it's a difficult sell to make someone that posh likable to people like us. And she is genuinely likable. And I think that's a combination of great writing and great acting.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
Crichton enters and cancels game nights as he's created something for them in the Hollow Suite.
The AR machine, which seems to be at play quite a bit, because we've got this episode and next episode.
Yeah, they clearly saw that the best episode of all time was Gunman of the Apocalypse, and therefore have overdone the AR stuff to try and emulate the best episode of Red Dwarf ever. And I'm all for it. It's the Rimmer Experience, which is designed to help people who are missing Rimmer and created from Rimmer's own diaries. It's been made into a fairground ride, and they all kind of strap into this kind of classic, almost like roller coaster cart. They're greeted by a giant Rimmer who does the salute and then talks about how remarkable and fearless he is. It then presents a lot of scenes from Rimmer's perspective. There's so much to talk about here.
Well, let's talk about that just in general before we go behind the scenes. In that they call this scene the Black Monday or the Black Tuesday or the Black Wednesday or the Black Thursday, because so many things went wrong technically in this scene. They spent so long in like those cars. Yeah, they had an absolute nightmare doing this.
It seems so simple.
The simple things. Well, you've seen on your favourite episode of all time, them trying to drop 2 bullets
Yeah.
to stay in camera.
True.
That sounds so simple.
True.
Yeah, I read about this. Apparently, this was an absolute ball ache to do.
Just the stuff with the cart.
I think, I don't have much more than that. They've just had loads of technical difficulties, and they're often got stuck inside the car while these technical difficulties, because you would have thought it's on a dolly,
Mm.
the actual car, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Okay, so the first scene has Crichton in a maid's outfit, Rimmer in an admiral's garb, and Lister and Cat as massive scaredy cats. Lister swears it never happened. I fucking love the makeup. I just love the makeup. The makeup.
The contours on Chris Barry's face. It's
It's great.
I think
Me too.
I have no idea. I got no idea why, but the 7th or 8th time I attempted to join TikTok, the algorithm started showing me kind of people who do kind of like face painting, and you've got some that are able to do it to a certain point where they can actually transform their face to look like someone else and it look almost realistic. This wasn't on the level of that, but it reminded me of how makeup can change the shape of someone's face, and just how Chris Barry somehow looks slimmer, younger, and more defined. It's just fascinating that that's Rimmer's self-image, considering how much self-loathing he's got.
Yeah, and we've got to remember as well that the Rimmer experience is from his notebooks as well. I think it's worth saying that that obviously this is, although Crichton's pulled it together, this is his notebook.
Crichton's done it deliberately. He's used the notebooks as an excuse to make Rimmer look like a tosspot. Because Rimmer's a tosspot.
Is this Rimmer's view of himself, or is it Crichton's view of what Rimmer thinks of himself?
Well, it's Crichton's interpretation of Rimmer's diaries, using them as an excuse to make Rimmer look like a tosspot, right?
True, but
I mean, it doesn't have to try hard.
Actually, to be fair, I'm surprised he was in the line where he said he didn't have to do any. He didn't have to do any effort whatsoever. But yeah.
I mean, you can only imagine, unless you could take it another way in that, let's go down the Star Trek route of that the diary is quite explicit in what he says. So, like, how he envisaged, like, Crichton being the maid and stuff like that, and a computer-generated AR system has gone, I'm going to emulate what is in how the descriptives are in the diary. It could go that way.
True. Next up, Rimmer gives Cat fashion advice, and the cat is absolutely livid. And I love that. It's so shocking. I think it's so simple, but works so well. And it's an easy gag, but it's a great gag, and I loved it.
Now it's looking at a woodwork teacher.
And something we haven't mentioned is like the ego. Yes, I had to tone that down quite a bit.
And also like the kind of the makeup on the cat and Lister, where their movements are quite jerky, like in sync. So they're driving and steering Starbuck at the exact same times with the most whitest fake teeth.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting that everyone else is a caricature of themselves, whereas Rimmer is an exaggerated version of himself because it is from Rimmer's perspective. It's really, really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on the watching the episode earlier today, and what I like about it is just how even like the talking about like sort of the movements are quite jerky. So the text is quite jerky as well, because he says like, "No, it isn't, Crichton, you thick titanium plank. Those are large broken fragments of a dying star which have compressed together under enormous pressure, causing them to compress into large fragments." He's using large fragments, and then the line straight after it is, "You're correct, sir, as usual. How could I make such an elementary mistake? As usual." It's the text is being repeated. So like the compressing to large fragments and the enormous large fragments, then it's not like wonderfully constructed sentences. And I think that goes to more the fragmented mind of Rimmer, and as you say, the movement as well, and even the cart is all like jerky and around. The whole thing is kind of like just doing that, and it's brilliant.
It's Guest House on Saturday Night Live energy. where you can pretty much, it feels like Crichton's reading it. It reminds me so much of like the best Saturday Night Live sketch, which is the Debbie Downer with Lindsay Lohan, where the staff just kind of, where the crew just like break down. Rachel Dratch just can't do anything. But like, there's a bit where Lindsay Lohan's trying to read the lines as a pause, and it just reminds me of that. And it's just like, it's the as usual.
Finally, one of the most infamous scenes in all of Red Dwarf, and I'm assuming the scene that is why you picked Blue, Matt.
Yeah, well, this whole section, but this is the best bit.
I'm just going to say Munchkins. Munchkins. And I have made some notes. If you're in trouble, he will save the day. He's brave and he's fearless, come what may. Without him, the mission would go astray. He's Arnold Rimmer. Without him, life would be much grimmer. He's handsome, trim, and no one slimmer. He will never need a Zimmer. He's Arnold Rimmer, more reliable than a garden strimmer. He's never been mistaken for your Briller. He's not bald and his head doesn't glimmer. Master of the wit and the repartee, his command of space directives is uncanny. How come he's such a genius? Don't ask me. He's Arnold Rimmer. He's also a fantastic swimmer. And if you play your cards right, then he might just come round for dinner. He's Arnold Rimmer. No rhymes now left apart from Quimmer. We hope they fade out before we get to Schlimmer. Fade out, you stupid blimmer. Genius.
Amazing.
Even that last stanza where they've run out of rhymes with Rimmer and they mock the fact that there aren't any more rhymes with Rimmer.
They pretty much break the fourth wall.
It's wonderful.
It's a shame that doesn't actually make it into the actual broadcast episode, because that last bit doesn't make it to the episode.
No, it doesn't. That's in the
but I love
extended.
I love the fact that they just build on that.
Yeah.
There's like a nice nod to continuity, which is like for the Red Dwarf geeks. There's a nice little nod to early first series.
Oh, Fantastic Swimmer, BSc.
Yeah.
Yeah, bronze swimming
Yeah.
certificate.
Yeah. It's just I love it.
And those Munchkins, they're just so undignified and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the moment the first Munchkin arrives, you're laughing, and then there's more, and then there's the one singing the backing track for going in. It's just sublime. I think it's one of the greatest sitcom scenes of all time across every single sitcom ever.
And that first shot as well, when they suddenly see the back of the Munchkin, if you focus, you can kind of see all four of the rest of the cast not exactly sure what they should be looking at. So you've got kind of like Craig Charles just doing a very weird kind of what the hell, right? You've got Danny John Jules just staring at something, unsure what he's looking at. You've got Robert Llewellyn looking his face around like that. But Chloe Annette is like leaning back, going like she's just watched the John Hurt scene in Alien.
That is one of my favourite things in the whole
It's
thing.
brilliant.
Is like just how much she is enjoying it. It goes back to like even like Duck Soup, where she's at the end of Duck Soup, where she's like, yeah, I like this, and I like that character trait of her. I think it's really good, that just the way how much she's enjoying herself.
So she's not got any lines. She doesn't do anything, obviously, because she didn't even meet Rimmer, or at least our Rimmer. And I love how she's just smiling and enjoying it and laughing through the whole thing. She could have been incredibly boring as an actor during this scene because she literally has nothing to do. Her improvisation through it is sublime. Chloe Annette is the best, man. Love her. So they leave the ride and Lister is absolutely apoplectic. Crichton is delighted with his work. Sigmund Freud, eat your heart out. And the episode ends. And I think this is one of the reasons why Series 7 is grossly underrated. I think people forget that this is in Series 7, which is one of the best moments in Red Dwarf of all of ever. I genuinely think 7's really underrated. And I think it's all to do with the weight more than it actually being low quality.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this is like a episode that, as I said at the start, is a nice coda for Rimmer. It's nice closure for the characters. It's the Toy Story 4 of the Rimmer arc, where Like the main thing's finished, but you need to finish off the emotional arc for one of the characters. So you do the Toy Story 4 thing, even though this is 25 years before then.
It's telling us that Pixar and Toy Story went, let's use the Rimmer experience. Just on the, as you say, the Munchkins, we will get to Back to Earth, but the Munchkins in Back to Earth is probably the funniest thing in the entire hour and a half in Back to Earth.
True. I watched the commentary, and the things of interest in that were that the cast praised the CG. Sigh. The fire scene was done with mirrors rather than superimposition. The snog lasted a lot longer than the cut, and Chris Barry didn't sing the Rimmer song.
No, he didn't.
I'm not talking about the song here. I'm talking about the previous comment. That intrigues me with, we were talking about the laughter track and them watching it. It intrigues me whether or not would you, because the take is so long, could they have filmed that as it was, as long as that take was, and then edit out? But then it goes back to the point of is the punchline him getting out of bed? Is that the punchline, not the thing? So they're seeing the episode as well, because that would be interesting if they actually just left the snog in there for as long as it was and just see what their reaction was.
I think the impact of the jump cut to him falling out of bed you wouldn't be able to have that reaction on live studio audience when you think about it, because you can't really kind of teleport Craig Charles to another part of the set.
No, you're right. The commentaries across the board have been generally interesting so far, but nothing massively remarkable. I've enjoyed,
apart from commentaries where the actor's not even in the episode.
Yeah, that was daft. Really daft.
Which one's that?
But yeah.
Was that Chris Barry on?
Dubbed soup, yeah.
If you're paying him, you might as well have him on.
So yeah, that was Blue. And, right, why is it called Blue? Have I missed something?
It was originally going to be called Heartache.
So he's blue because he's missing Rimmer, or is there another reference I'm not getting?
Yeah, I just assumed it was because Lister was feeling blue.
I thought it was a bit more subtle than and I missed something, but obviously not.
It's Blue or Heartache. This is from, as I say, the Jane Killick book. Blue or Heartache, as it was originally titled, was one of the episodes which came from an outside writer.
Yes, I want to bring that up. So it was co-written by Doug Naylor and someone called Kim Fuller. Now, any of you recognise the name Kim Fuller?
Is it Brian Fuller's sister?
Immediately, no.
Oh, okay. Kim Fuller, who was born 50th of June 1951 in Hastings, England, is an English writer for film, radio and television. He is the brother of music manager and Idols series creator Simon Fuller. So he's been writing for television for over 40 years, but he's largely known for writing the television and film aspects of Simon Fuller's artists. He's written for a number of television comedy programmes like the 9 o'clock news, Lenny Henry Show, Spitting Image, and Red Dwarf. But he's perhaps most well known for two things. One, for being the main writer for Miami 7 and LA 7, featuring S Club 7. So he wrote that. And he was also the writer of a film called Spice World.
Spice World,
a film that I maintain gets better the older it gets. I will defend Spice World.
I've seen Spice World once. I have no desire to see Spice World again.
I find it hilarious in ways that it shouldn't be hilarious, and I generally think it gets better in hindsight, particularly when it's during the Cool Britannia part of 97. I don't really like the phrase guilty pleasures, but Spice World's one of those.
I don't feel guilt for any of my pleasures.
Spice World's also got one of my favourite lines in the film in it, which I think is a Kim Fuller line, where I think Barry Humphries is basically a Rupert Murdoch style red top newspaper editor, and Richard O'Brien's a skeevy kind of paparazzi, and he's saying, "How good are you?" Well, goes well, this is you this morning, this picking your nose, another bogey breakfast. This is you last week doing this, this and this, and this was you behind the bike sheds with some girl's name when you were 12. Man, he's a really good photographer. For some reason, that line's always stuck with me.
That is a good line. I'll give you that.
I saw Kim Fuller's name. I was like, oh, okay. And I think it's fresh in my mind as well, because I'm a big fan of a podcast called It's an S-Pod thing, which is going through every episode of S Club's TV show, and the writing on it is kind of really bad.
I love that podcast exists, but I'm still not going to listen to it.
Oh, it's brilliant. It is a great podcast.
Talking about podcasts, it is that part of the episode where we shill our shit. Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me anywhere on the internet if you just search for Pick a Disc on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. It's my podcast where I talk to people about albums for whatever reason I want to. And I think at the time of this airing, I'll also be attempting another podcast called Ask Us About Loom, where I talk about adventure gaming. On the time recording, I'll be recording in the first episode in 2 years in a couple of days. So I'm really excited to bring that back. And that's Ask Us About Loom on Instagram and Twitter.
Kurt, what about yourself?
You can find me, Mark,
Everywhere!
at Linktree.
Oh.
I've gone down the Linktree route. So linktr.ee/r-muldrake, RMULDRAKE, where you can find an old plethora of all my things that I'm currently doing, because you can take each link off and on when you want to. So find me and what I'm doing there. Most recent one is Oceanic Lost for 20, which is a YouTube channel covering all things Lost as we prepare for the 20th anniversary of Lost, which is in 2024.
Do you get comments saying stop talking about Yellow Jackets on your Lost thing?
Well, it hasn't aired yet at time of recording because it's not 108 weeks to the 20th anniversary yet. So, but I might start getting comments about the fact that I keep referring to Yellow Jackets off from, because they're very, very similar TV shows.
Just let me check this right. Lost as in the overrated program that had a polar bear and a terrible ending.
No, the really, really,
No,
really good
that
show with a
program.
really good progress with a really terrible ending.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. It did have a polar bear.
No, it had a polar bear. Yes,
Anyway.
it had a polar bear, which was
Oh
explained.
yeah, the polar bear.
It had an ending, which
The
was
polar
good.
bear.
Wasn't it explained shit like there was a... We're not talking about fucking Lost. If you're looking for me, it's...
I will admit that the polar bear explanation is a bit shit.
Yes. If you're looking for me,
But
it's...
it was explained.
If you're looking for me, it's at Mark Adams HC. That's me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm podcasting about the Child's Play and Chucky franchise with my friend Dev, and you can find that at Chucky Vision on Twitter. All of the podcasts we've talked about, you can find them by searching for their names on whatever podcast provider you are currently listening to Shipwrecked and Comatose on. That being said, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Shipwrecked and Comatose. And until next week...
Welcome to the Mark Adams experience.
Hello, and this is Chucky Vision on the We Made This Network, the podcast for all things Chucky. I'm Dev Elson.
And I'm Mark Adams. We're two queer podcasters who love bloody horror
Camp comedy, gay romance,
and referencing icons like Freddy, Jason, and Britney.
the Chucky films and new TV show deliver all of that, and there is still so much more to cover.
So if you wanna play, find Chucky Vision on Twitter at Chucky Vision and on all good podcast providers.
And yes, the title is a Chuckle Vision pun.
Because why not?
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at We Made This Pod.